everyone, welcome to my presentation. I'm Şevval Kızılkan. Today, again, we're going to talk about classroom interaction. I'm in the week 3, and it's our introduction and our content. First of all, we're going to talk about the role of non-linguistic features in classroom interaction. And then, this is water, understanding contextualization cues and contextualization cues in classroom interaction, and some contextualization cues and contextualization cues in combination, context, communicative competence, and indexicality and the role of non-linguistic features in classroom interaction. Let's start. The role of non-linguistic features in classroom interaction. Okay, non-linguistic features in classroom interaction includes eye gaze, gestures, posture, and even clothing. And although they're rarely discussed explicitly, they strongly affect how teachers and students interact. And this presentation explores how these features, called contextualization resources, shape classroom participation and learning outcomes. As you see, classroom interaction is shaped by more than spoken language. Non-linguistic features often go unnoticed. These features influence participation, identity, and learning. Now I'm going to talk about this is water, understanding contextualization cues. In his 2005 commencement speech, this is water, David Foster Wallace uses a simple parable about fish who don't know what water is. And this story illustrates how easily we overlook the environments and habits that constantly surround and support us. And contextualization cues such as eye gaze, intonation, and posture, waiting time, and speaking volume um, function in the same way. We usually do not notice them because they're part of our default seating. And however, when we move into a different cultural or interactional context, these cues suddenly become visible. Research by John Gompers shows that even single slight differences in intonation can change how meaning is interpreted, and sometimes leading to misunderstandings, conflict, or unfair judgments about people. And this highlights why awareness of contextualization cues is crucial, especially in, as you know, classrooms and cross-cultural communication. And now we're going to look at contextualization cues in classroom interaction. Classroom settings. In classroom settings, interaction depends heavily on the moment-by-moment use of contextualization cues. Especially on the first day of school, teachers often manage these cues deliberately to project a particular identity. And Lon Johnson emphasizes that posture, movement, facial expression, voice pitch, volume, and tone all shape how students perceive a teacher within within the first few minutes. And students, even if they're not consciously aware of it, they're highly sensitive to these type of signals. And however, not all students interpret um, contextualization cues in the same way. Differences in intonation, eye gaze, gestures, or I mean, body language can reflect broader social varieties, dialects, or registers of language. And research shows that students may respond to teachers' intonation rather than content itself, and allowing them to appear competent without fully understanding the material. And this actually highlights how contextualization cues can structure participation and create what is called a procedural display, right? Language varies across accents uh, and dialects and registers, which are shaped by demographic, cultural, and situational factors. When teachers misinterpret these cues, such as eye contact, especially eye contact, or levels of formality or tone, miscommunication and unfair judgments may occur, as I said before. And understanding classroom interaction, therefore, requires awareness of contextualization cues, function differently across students, situations, and social groups. And now we're going to talk about some contextualization cues. From the range of a wide range of contextualization cues, some are especially important to pay attention to. Uh, for example, eye contact and facial expression strongly influence how attention, respect, engagement are interpreted, right? And tone, intonation, and volume shifts often guide students toward expected answers or signal whether something is serious or humorous. And pausing and speaking pace affect wait time and student participation, sometimes encouraging responses and sometimes discouraging them. Register shifts, such as moving from a formal classroom style to informal one, can change how students um, interpret expectations. Finally, body position and physical proximity influence authority, approachability, and inclusion. Being aware of these cues helps prevent misinterpretation and supports more equitable classroom interaction. And contextualization cues in combination. Okay, contextualization cues such as intonation, eye gaze, and wait time rarely function independently. Instead, they work in combination with other nonverbal features like clothing, body language, skin color, and the use of objects. Linguist James uh, describes these combinations as powerful resources that influence how language functions in interaction. And in the right context, um, combinations can support authority, creativity, or engagement. And in the wrong context, um, however, the same combinations can become liabilities. Lon Johnson illustrates this by adjusting her clothing to match her instructional goals. When she wants creativity and spontaneity, she dresses informally. But when she wants authority and control, she wears a suit. And these clothing choices work together with tone, posture, facial expressions to shape how students hear her words, right? And students also use combinations to project identities, but these identities are not always read as intended. A student's appearance, accent, or manner of speaking may cause teachers to misjudge their participation or ability. And research shows that combination involving race and language can lead to discrimination. And the same variety of English maybe accepted as legitimate when used by one speaker, but stigmatized when used by other, depending on appearance or racial identity. Therefore, um, analyzing classroom interaction requires attention not only to what is said, but to how it is said. Like how speakers present themselves and how these features combine to shape judgments about students and teachers. Oh, my text in here is gone. It's fine. We're gonna talk about context, communicative competence, and index quality. Okay. Um, Contextualization cues, such as what we mentioned, intonation, eye gaze, gesture, work in combination with appearance, race, style, and their meanings shift across context. We mentioned a way of speaking that functions well among peers may be misinterpreted in a classroom setting. And to understand classroom interaction, actually, we must look beyond the classroom itself. Students and teachers um, constantly bring communicative practices from other social worlds into school, right? Like um, studying these practices requires archaeology of language, like uncovering how small interactional details reflect long histories of socialization. And the concept of um, communicative competence developed by Dell Himes, and he helps us to explain this process. Communicative competence um, refers not to universal rules of language, but to culturally specific ways of using language appropriately in particular contexts. And research in language socialization shows that many features of communication, such as we mentioned eye gaze, intonation, blah, 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 are learned through participation in everyday activities. And these practices feel natural to speakers, but they're not universal at the same time. Like the idea of indexicality explains how cues and combinations point to particular identities or meanings in different social worlds. And the same idea um, may differ in meanings depending on context, sometimes leading to misunderstandings or even we mentioned discrimination. And if we examine this, uh, if we examine this contexts, meanings across contexts, classrooms can become places where multiple forms of communicative competence are recognized and valued. Now, we're going to talk about interactional interactional hotspots in in the classroom. I'm so sorry. My voice is not that good right now. Okay, now we're gonna talk about hotspots. Okay. Um first, uh we had an example time for bat in the course. And we can identify several hotspots in interaction from there. Uh, you must check it. Hotspots are uh, hotspots occur when interaction doesn't told as expected. Expectations about cues and sequence are disrupted. Hotspots reveal assumptions and alternative interactional choices. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry for my voice. Sorry for my throat. See you in the week 4 then. Bye.